All right, Shalom. First and foremost, of all praise, honor, and glory to the Heavenly Father and His only begotten Son, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakah Kodash, the Barnes, the Apostles, and other bishops, a great millstone teaching us from understanding truth according to the Bible and rule well, and peace and blessings so afflicted the nation of Israel, take through spirit and power of Yahweh Shema Shai, willing into the Lord's willing edifying lesson. Today's lesson we're going to be hopping into the scriptures, dealing with putting on the protection that comes with serving Yahweh Shema Shai, right? If you, well, it tells us here in Sirach, the second chapter, we'll start here. Sirach chapter 2, verse 1, it says, "My son, if thou come to serve the Lord, prepare thy soul for temptation." So you have to be able to prepare yourself to be tempted, to go through different types of temptations, right? So we're going to be tempted, which a temptation is drawing away. Many a times, spiritual demon Satan's going to try to draw you away out of the path and the instructions that Yahweh Shema Shai wants us to follow to, get out of, these different situations that we find ourselves in. Real quick, James chapter 1, verse 2, "My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptations." Like diverse meaning different. You're going to find yourself in different situations where wisdom is going to have to be utilized and used over the desire of your flesh. And that might be, uncomfortable, or it might not be the most pleasing thing to do, but it's the most beneficial thing to do for our spirits. Knowing this, that the trying of your faith, meaning when your faith is being tested, worketh patience, right? So it builds up our ability, to have patience, which your ability to have patience goes into your ability to suffer. And when you think about the Apostle Paul, the Lord told him, suffer. I just get the scripture for edification. Say, I think I can quote it, but we might as well get it. It's not. Let me just type in "must suffer." I can paraphrase it. That's what I meant to say. But let's see if we can get it. For I will show him how great things. Okay, yep, Acts. This is Acts chapter 9, verse 15. It says, "And the Lord said unto him, Go thy way, for he is a chosen vessel unto me." Right, speaking about Saul, whose name was later changed to Paul, right? Paul, the apostle to the Gentiles. It says, "For he is a chosen vessel unto me to bear my name," right? To bear the name of the Lord, right? It says, so the name of the Lord, there it is. It says, "Before the Gentiles, which are the Israelite foreigners, and the kings, and the children of Israel," right? It says, which we've been made an apostle, to, a prophet over the nations. We're here to tell these heathen nations their judgment and to proclaim the gospel and liberty to the saints of the Most High. It says, "For I will show him how great things he must suffer for my name's sake." Right? So the chosen vessels of Yahweh Shema Shai will suffer for his name's sake. So it's good to get used to suffering, right? Here in James chapter 1, verse 4, it says, "But let patience have her perfect work, that ye may be perfect and entire, wanting nothing," meaning lacking nothing, meaning needing nothing of this world, and being fulfilled in the spirit of Yahweh Shema Shai, the Lord's spirit. The honoring of Yahweh Shai's sacrifice fulfills us. It is our purpose and why we are alive. Let's jump down a little bit to verse 12. It says, "Blessed is the man that endureth temptation," right? So blessed, they're counted happy that endure temptations. You're blessed, you're counted happier. You're counted because when you endure these temptations, when you actually start to do the things that Yahweh Shema Shai, gives us the instructions to follow, what the sadness through the sorrow, right? The countenance is made happy, the mind is made happy, right? So through these sufferings, we're actually made better through overcoming the bitterness with, overcome the darkness of this world with the light of Yahweh Shai. You see, it says, for when he is tried, he shall receive the crown of life, right? And the crown of life, that's going to be, joint heirs with the Yahweh Shai, immortality, right? This is what we're, striving ultimately to be a part of. And these trial runs that we're going through, right? These little things that we go through, and, I say little in the sense of, because we're, it's, maybe very difficult, or maybe seem very overwhelming, but we can do, but scriptures speak about we're more than conquerors in Yahweh Shai that called us, and the hour of temptation is fastly approaching, right? And these tests that we go through now are the building blocks for us to build up a healthy relationship with the Yahweh Shema Shai, so that when it comes to striving against sin, and our literal lives are on the line, we may be more inclined to, be, with the Lord, right? To be with Yahweh Shema Shai, even in the face of death, right? It says, which the Lord hath promised to them that love him, right? How do you love the Lord? By keeping, his ways, keeping his commandments. It says, let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted of the Most High. For the Most High cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempteth he any man. Yeah, what we're going through isn't, necessarily a punishment from the Lord. No, it's a test to see, what you desire most. What do you really desire? What do you, really want? Do you want to be closer with Yahweh Shema Shai? Well, this is the path that you need to take. Or do you want to please your flesh? See, because it's not really a test if you then have, some type of longing or some type of desire that needs to be purged out of you for the things that's opposing us, that's opposition, that's opposite to what the Lord wants you to do. The flesh wants you to do one thing, the Lord wants you to do another thing. So what do what does the inward man really desire, right? And that's the test, right? So it says, but every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust. See, the commandments of the Lord, are not grievous. So these commandments, to be obedient, to do and perform the acts of righteousness shouldn't burden us. To watch the videos, to set aside a time to read. I was talking to this personal trainer, and they were basically saying you don't have an hour a day to go to the gym or go on a walk. You don't have an hour a day. And, when you think about that in us in this ministry, an hour a day, right? To set time aside. Of course, some of the apostles' videos are a little longer than an hour. But, like when it comes to, reading or doing lessons or studying, you could read for 20 minutes, watch a video, take notes on that video for 20 minutes, pause it, come back the next day, right? And then for the next 20 minutes, do your lesson. These are, things that you can do, that we all can do, right? Because I like, when you do your breakdown lessons, I like to spend a little bit more time on them personally. Watch the video a couple times, timestamp it, come back, rewind it a little bit. That way you can kind of, remember it a little bit more than just kind of speeding through it and then on to the next task. But that's just, with breakdowns and things of that nature. But yeah, it says, but every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust and enticed. Let's get definition for enticed here, because the thing about the flesh, it's all about instant gratification. It's all about, you know, why wait? Buy now, why wait? And that's really the spirit of this world, even with the advertisement, you know, that tries to entice you to buy things by putting on a fake sale, you know, even though the price may be $100, you know, originally, and that's what they originally wanted to sell it for. You know, they might have it marked up at $120, and they'll tell you, you know, $20 off, you know, buy now, you know, get it for, you know, $100, which that was the original price they wanted to sell you at the whole time, right? Same thing, you know, when it comes to this flesh, it's all about, oh, you're getting a better deal, because, you know, why wouldn't you just put your mind at ease now, you know, when in reality you're just hiding the root of the problem. You're just burying over the root, and eventually, you know, all the things that are in darkness are going to come to light. Entice means to attract artificially. Wow, to attract artificially. Wow, isn't that insane? Right, to attract you, you know, artificially. Wow. It says, then when lust have conceived, it bringeth forth sin, and sin, when it is finished, it bringeth forth death. And lust, you know, something that's inside your lust is drawn out, you know, through the temptation. So what are you lusting after? What are you know, what's really in you, right? So you see many people, you know, and this is what we're fighting, right? You know, you have to realize that lust, you know, is what we're fighting to get purged out of us, right? Verse 21, I know we're in James a lot, but it's, you know, all the points are right here. Why jump around? This is James 1:21. Wherefore lay apart all filthiness and superfluity of naughtiness, and receive with meekness the engrafted word, which is able to save your souls. Right? And when you look up this word, superfluity, you know, goes into, you know, in a level of excessness, you know, just doing too much, you know, as we are in the flesh, but we are not, you know, of the flesh. You know, I was watching the brother's video today going into how there's a quote, you know, going into how we're not but, you know, we don't have spirits, you know, we are spirits, and we are just in this body. All right, so we're in this body, you know, but we're actually spirits, you know, so our spirits, you know, you know, that's always been here and will always be, you know, must have a level of detail and attention to them, because that's your true self. But superfluity is the residue remains, so the residue, right, the remainder, the wickedness remaining over in a Christian from his state prior to conversion, right? Conversion meaning, you know, repenting and turning back to the Lord is still the old man that we're fighting. You know, that's why the common expression is you versus you, you know, at the end of the day. And so we're doing our best, you know, and we have to utilize, you know, the tools such as, you know, praying more, really examining ourselves, you know, on the daily, and then, you know, spring into action. You know, can't be afraid to watch videos, to read, right, to sit in silence with your thoughts so you can filter out your thoughts, you know, get around the body of believers, right? Iron sharpeneth iron. These things are very beneficial for us in our walk. Let's finish out James. James 1:22. It says, but be ye doers of the word, and not hearers only, deceiving your own selves, right? Because you can psych yourself out by hearing good advice, and it's like, oh yeah, that's good. You know, wisdom may be sweet, So, you hear the wisdom is sweet. Oh, that's good, but you actually have to do it. If you don't do it, then you're just deceiving yourself. And this is also we're able to save, our souls from the corruption of this world. Let's go to Ephesians, the 6th chapter. Let's cue that up. This is Ephesians chapter 6, verse 10. It says, "Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might." Right? So we're strong in Yahweh Shema Shai. See, not strong in the world, right? This world, the people of this world find strength in whether it be numbers, community that they may build, or some type of what was I going to say, or some type of money. People find like a lot of things, dealing with money. All right, so it says, "Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might." It says, "Put on the whole armor of the Most High, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil." All right, so the wiles of the devil, the trickery, that the spiritual demon, Satan, the traps, the snares, the different situations, the sufferings of the flesh that we find ourselves in. So we're suffering in the flesh, and Satan tries to play on that, pain that we're going through, to, deceive us, whether it be to lure us away to find some type of pleasure, so these are all things that we ultimately are fighting against. It says, "Put on the whole armor of the Most High, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil," right? So you have to be, equipped, for the battle. You have to equip yourself for, the fight ultimately, right? There's clearly a fight that we have to equip ourselves with, right? And you have to have the proper tools to fight in this battle, in this war. It says, "Put on the whole armor of the Most High, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places." So this is a spiritual fight where the powers that be, clearly, we're public enemy number one, and they're constantly using their sorcery and, witchcraft to keep the minds of the people, under their control. It's a certain Cinderella story with the New York Knicks. Now they're, having a chance after a 10-year drought to be they're going to the NBA Finals, and oh my gosh. And it's just like, wait a minute, gas prices are at all-time high. There's a war going on. There's pedophiles, that are literally in office, and, people who are, you have these minor attracted people who are in power. Just like, wait a minute, there's a lot of real things going on, right? Crime is at an all-time high because of it's just, society breaking down. So, we're seeing a breakdown of society, famines, rumors of famines. All of these things are being pushed in the world, right? So we're living in some serious times, and being in the spirit, is very important, as brothers have always been saying, we're at the end of this thing, right? And we're going to have to walk in the spirit, that we fulfill not the lust of the flesh. It says, "Wherefore take unto you the whole armor of the Most High, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day. And having done all to stand, stand therefore, having your loins girt about with truth, and having on the breastplate of righteousness," right? So your loins, gird about with truth the loins of your mind, right? As you go about your goings, the truth must be, on your mind. The truth of Yahweh by Shema Shai, upholding the standard, shining, as lights, in this world, in the sense of, applying wisdom, being blameless, right? Doing, our lessons, doing the work, being occupied in the ministry, right? As brothers say, if you stay on fire, you don't have to get on fire. If you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. And it really is, that simple. It says, stand therefore having your loins girt about with truth and having on the breastplate of righteousness, right? So there's a breastplate of righteousness that we, are putting on, to defend us. So righteousness is very important, performing these acts of righteousness, not only thinking about, the acts of righteousness, but performing them. These are actions that you will literally put on the breastplate, before you go on to war, go out to war. And, you think about wearing armor, it's a burden as well, right? So it's a burden, it's a weight that you have to carry, we have to carry, our cross daily. It says in your feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace, right? It says, so being ready, being instant, in season, out of season, ready to, feed and edify, because this is how we, show the Lord and our people that we have care for them, by bringing out these words, by giving you this warning, these exhortations, right? To continue exhorting the souls of the disciples and exhorting them to continue in the faith, and that we, through much tribulation, shall enter into the kingdom of Yahweh Shema Shai. It says, above all, taking the shield of faith, wherewith you shall be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked. So above all, right, the shield of faith is very important, right? Faith, is our shield, believing, right, that Yahweh, right, that He is, in the name of His only begotten Son, going to save and deliver us, out of, any situation, any evil time, that we, find ourselves in, right? These temptations come with, we can please the flesh now and worry about the problem later, or we can, face the problem and believe that through Yahweh by Shema Shai, the problem will be fixed, and have the faith that even though we don't necessarily see, how the problem is going to work out or how things are going to work out in our favor, we believe that it will. It says, and take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of the Most High, right? And that helmet of salvation is that hope, that constant hope on our minds. But as that scene, Saving Private Ryan, you have the beach scene, which, is always kind of funny. It's like, well, why are they wearing that helmet? I remember saying that when I was young. Why are they wearing that helmet? It seems like an inconvenience just to wear that helmet. And one of the guys in the scene, he had a ricochet had hit his helmet, and he just started laughing, that, he was still alive. So that, the hope of salvation, that the constant, believing and, the expectation that no matter, what situation that we find ourselves in, that the Lord is, truly, on our side. It says, praying always with all prayer and supplication in the Spirit, and watching thereunto with all perseverance. All right, so you have to have the praying for the gift of perseverance is very important, and supplication for all saints. So Yahweh Shema Shai, has, us in, under His, mighty protection, the body of believers, right? And we should be constantly praying for one another, right? Keeping each other in our prayers, right? As that show, the care of all the churches, is constantly on our minds. This is 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 10. It says, "Wherefore, the rather, brethren, give diligence to make your calling and election sure. For if you do these things, you shall never fall." Right? You see these people who are very diligent, and in the world, they're very diligent in their businesses, whether it be, to work out every day, and you're like, "Oh wow, how did you, get that physique? How are you so in shape?" Well, he was diligent in working out. So when it came to, achieving his goals, then he got them. Or, of course, that's just one example, right? But for us, you want to be diligent in, your studies and reading and, praying to Yahweh Shema Shai, constantly, meditating on the scriptures, meditating on the word, right? And walking in the spirit and, doing all that you can to make excuses when it comes to pleasing your flesh. Oh, I don't have time for that right now. And if I do that, if I eat this food, it's going to be kind of an inconvenience for me because I got to do this later. Just finding excuses on why you shouldn't, please the flesh. Instant gratification now, but later down the line, there's going to be a side effect. There's always a side effect when it comes to, choosing the flesh over the spirit. So with that, pray through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shema Shai. Thanks, someone say Shalom.